In Book 4, Chapter 7 of the Credo series, we learn of the Maryknoll Lay Missioners, who really put the social teachings of the Church into action. Maryknoll Lay Missioners is a Catholic organization inspired by the mission of Jesus to live and work with poor communities in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. The men and women who are part of this group quite literally leave their homes and their families to help create a more just and compassionate world. We went to meet some of the missioners and to hear their experiences of being the face of the Apostolic Church in the world.
Maryknoll Lay Missioners was founded in 1975 as a program of the Maryknoll Fathers and Brothers and the Maryknoll Sisters to include the laity in the global mission of the Church. And since that time, over 700 U.S. Catholic laity have gone to mission in 29 countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And I think a very important thing is the commitment is not a short-term commitment, which is very prevalent today. The minimum commitment is 3.5 years. And that can be renewed after mutual discernment. And we now have, for example, one healthcare professional in East Africa who's been with us for 37 years, since the very beginning. We have a doctor who has served in East Africa now for 28 years. So there are, I would say, approximately 25 of us that are at least 10 years and more as a part of this organization. And I remember back in the university, these professors showed us a series that CBS television had produced on hunger in America. And in one of the examples, it was a priest, a Hispanic priest, Jesuit, walking through the neighborhoods of San Antonio in some very poor areas and talking about the poverty in that community and the reality of Mexican Americans and Mexican immigrants in the city of San Antonio. And there was something that clicked at that moment. It was just like, okay, is this what religion is all about? It's not just going to Mass at least every Sunday and my prayers and fulfilling my obligations as a Catholic as we had learned them, but what is this social commitment? How do I live out my faith on a daily basis? And that really sparked something in me.
We went to Chile. We always go to, as missioners, you present to the bishop, and he asked us actually to help to rebuild community, to congregate and celebrate the life of God and present in their communities. And I have some degrees in theology as well as in liturgy, so that's what I did. I used my skills to help the communities, to create liturgical teams, to do some workshops, to find who is the different leaders of the community, the talents in the community, and those who read well, those who sing. I love to sing, so I was teaching guitar, teaching songs, and kind of to revive that sense of community, of Christian basic communities. We did some pastoral theological reflection with the leaders of the community. So the idea was to kind of leave these small groups in charge of the community so they can call and celebrate and continue the life.
I'm Margot Cambier, and this is my husband Eric. We're Maryknoll Lay Missioners.
We joined Maryknoll in 1991, and the call came way before that. We were at Mass one day, I was a lector, and we had a visiting priest from the Ozarks who gave a wonderful speech and storytelling part of his life. And he invited us, as many missionary priests do, to give generously, join him. And at that point, something within me came to life. It says, really, I, a lay person, can go out and become a missionary.
Actually, Eric felt the call to mission first. I had worked many years in the computer industry and was going through my own faith transformation. and felt called to change and give my gifts and talents to Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Worcester, Massachusetts. So it took some time, some prayer, retreat, discernment to come to the position that we would walk through this door together as a couple.
Our first choice was we'd like to go to Chile, and as God would like us to do, we were sent to Tanzania instead. We were placed in our first mission site with other Maryknoll priests that showed us the ropes and the way. And eventually we found ourselves in a rural parish on our own. We were supposed to be there with another priest, unfortunately. He was moved to another place. So we ended up, just the two of us, running a parish, about 100 miles long, 12 outstations, but it was the most beautiful area in the world.
Entering into Tanzania, coming from the United States, I experienced quite a bit of culture shock because the country was so undeveloped. And it had an impact on me as far as the quality of life. So much that I took for granted things like electricity, running water, access to health care, all the tropical and hygiene related illnesses, education, lack of infrastructure. So it was really the church that was called to provide and walk with the people to help meet their basic needs and their faith development.
When folks come to us, they have to have a skill, a preparation, whether it be university or trade, that they can be of service in the areas where they're assigned. For example, we have a lot of teachers, we have a lot of medical professionals of different, doctors, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, medical technicians, a lot of teachers, many engineers. For example, we have an engineer in Bolivia now working to bring potable water to indigenous peoples. He's a civil engineer by background. So you have to have a skill and a preparation as well as your faith commitment. We, the laity, called to mission from our baptism. And I often ask the question, what do you think about when you hear the word mission or missionary? And they'll say, oh, this, and that. I say, yeah, but mission happens here and it happens in the fields afar. And those of us who are privileged to go to mission in the fields afar need the support of the local church here, both in prayer and financially. We need to recognize that the laity are called to ministry and to a mission vocation. And in today's world, today's church, the laity have to step up to the plate if mission is going to happen now and especially into the future.
I know a lot of people must be wondering, why would you devote 5 years of your life to going overseas and doing this kind of work? What is so special about it? And for me, I think the really important thing was that this was an opportunity to really make a difference that was obvious, that you could see. Because before I went to Peru, I had a good job and I felt like I was contributing to society. I was working in scientific research on solar cells, and it was good company. But the truth is, when I left to go to Peru, they hired someone else and the work continued. While the work I did in Peru, putting together solar cookers and solar water heaters in this remote, marginalized area where people had never heard of this concept, it was clear that if I hadn't gone there and done this, it would not have happened.
When I look back on my life, I'm so grateful that I have been given both the privilege to be able to make decisions in my life, to be able to opt for a life in mission and service to others. But I also really appreciate finding that challenge in Scripture, that Jesus very gently, non-violently, saying, look, if you've been given all this privilege, if you are a child of God, then what will you do with it? You have life here on earth, very short, as his witness certainly was. Think about what you'll do with your life, and think about the values that I have come to live and to teach. So that for me just changed my life forever, because the idea wasn't only practice the sacramental elements of your faith, but Jesus spoke to me through Scripture saying, you know what, your life is the sacrament that I want you to practice. And your life is calling you to live the way I have lived, to live evidence of the good news that I come to bring to people.
A quote attributed to St. Francis of Assisi is, "Preach the gospel at all times. When necessary, use words." Have you reached out to help someone and, in so doing, preach the gospel? Share your experiences with others.